Welcome back to Master 79. In this video we're taking on ielts speaking part 1 on the topic of singing. You get a full brainstorm for every question, and then a complete Band 9 standard interview from start to finish. First, let's be clear about what part 1 actually is. The whole speaking test runs for 11 to 14 minutes, and part 1 takes up the first 4 to 5 minutes of that. The examiner asks short questions about familiar, everyday subjects. This is not the place for a long speech. My coaching advice is simple. Aim for 2 to 4 sentences per answer. Long enough to show your range, short enough to still sound like a conversation. Here is our topic card. Topic 16, Singing, with 4 questions. Take a moment to read them. Notice how they move from a personal preference to an experience, then to a hypothetical, and finally to an opinion. That progression is very typical of part 1, and each type needs a slightly different answer sheet. Every strong part 1 answer follows the same 3 beats. Answer, reason, extend. First, answer the question directly in your first few words. Second, give a reason. Third, extend with one concrete example or detail. Skip the first beat and you sound evasive. Skip the third and you sound flat. Question 1. Do you like singing, and why? Let's brainstorm. My direct answer is yes, but I'll add a touch of honest self-deprecation because that sounds far more natural than false modesty. My reason is that singing is completely uninhibited, and for the extension, I'll name specific places. The shower, the car. Specific detail is what separates a Band 7 from a Band 9. Here it is. I do, though I'd be the first to admit I'm no great talent. I sing constantly when I'm on my own, in the shower, in the car, usually at the top of my voice. What I enjoy is that it's completely uninhibited. There's nobody to impress, so I can just let go, and it lifts my mood almost instantly. Now notice the phrase, at the top of my voice. That is a fixed collocation, and it earns you far more than saying very loudly. Question 2. Have you ever learned how to sing? This is an experience question, and the trap is a bare no. A bare no kills the conversation and gives the examiner nothing to assess. So my plan is this. Say no formally, then rescue it with a partial yes from my school choir, then look forward to something I might do in future. That gives me 3 tenses in a single answer. Not formally, no. I was in a school choir for a couple of years when I was about 10, and we picked up the basics, breathing, holding a note, that sort of thing, but I've never had one-to-one lessons. It's something I've toyed with taking up, actually, because I suspect a bit of proper training would make a world of difference. Count the grammar in there. Past simple, present perfect, and a conditional. That is grammatical range doing real work. Question 3. Who do you want to sing for? Hypothetical questions like this reward personality. My honest answer is nobody. I sing for myself, but nobody is a dead end, so I'll use the phrase if I had to name someone to open a second door. Then I'll pick one specific person, my 3-year-old niece, and finish with a light joke. Humor, used sparingly, sounds very natural indeed. Honestly, mostly for myself, but if I had to name someone, it would be my little niece. She's 3, and she's a wonderfully forgiving audience. She'll happily sing the same nursery rhyme 20 times over and never once complain that I'm off key, which is more than I can say for the rest of my family. That closing clause, which is more than I can say for, is a lovely relative clause, and it delivers the joke at the same time. Question 4. Do you think singing can bring happiness to people? This is an opinion question, and it's the closest part 1 ever gets to part 3, so give it a little more weight. My plan is 2 reasons from 2 different angles. One scientific, one social. 2 contrasting angles will always sound more developed than 2 versions of the same idea. Absolutely, and I don't think that's just a feel-good cliché. There's a fair bit of research suggesting that singing releases endorphins and brings stress levels down. But beyond the science, singing together creates a real sense of belonging. You only have to look at a football crowd or a church congregation to see how powerful that shared experience can be. Now notice that I hedged with a fair bit of research, rather than claiming a hard statistic. Hedging is a band 9 habit. Never invent a number you can't defend. Here is the whole interview in one place. Pause the video and read it end to end. Notice the total length, roughly 240 words across 4 answers. That is about the right weight for part 1. Much shorter and you're underselling yourself. Much longer and you're straying into part 3 territory. Here is your language bank. These are the exact phrases that lift those answers. Learn them as whole chunks, not as single words. At the top of my voice. To pick up the basics. To toy with doing something. To make a world of difference. A forgiving audience. To be off-key. A feel-good cliché. A real sense of belonging. Chunks are what fluent speakers actually store in memory, and they are exactly what an examiner hears as natural. So why does this reach band 9? Against the 4 public criteria, fluency and coherence. Every answer is developed and connected with no hesitation for language. Lexical resource. Idiomatic chunks used precisely and never just for decoration. Grammatical range. A full mix of tenses and complex clauses, accurate throughout. And pronunciation, which of course depends entirely on your delivery. One honest caveat. This band 9 label is my own internal quality check against the publicly available ielts descriptors. It is not a certified examiner's score. Now it's your turn. Record yourself answering all 4 questions using the answer, reason, extend formula, and try to work in at least 3 phrases from the language bank. Then play it back and count your fillers. If this helped, do subscribe to BMaster79 for more ielts walkthroughs. See you in the next one.